The US and UK have vowed to use what they call agile partnerships with countries, including Australia, to hold China to account for its conduct. Foreign secretaries from both countries have met in London before Marise Payne and others join them in talks later this week, where Beijing's assertive diplomacy will be discussed. Correspondent Greg Jennett reports from Washington.
Morning, Ros. Well, they're certainly circling the wagons among democracies, liberal democracies at that, in a way that reflects Joe Biden's view of the world. He sees this as an epic struggle of its time between autocracies on one hand and democracies on the other. And so we're starting to see some of this play out in London, initially between Dominic Raab and Tony Blinken, but that will grow as the week goes on because G7 foreign ministers will be there with them before too long, and they'll be joined by an outer circle of foreign ministers, including our own Marise Payne. You've already referred to her, along with Korea, India and South Africa as well as observers. And so they're not pussyfooting around here. Dominic Raab and Tony Blinken very explicitly referring to Russia and China, but particularly China, because it says there is a responsibility on the part of democracies to hold China to account when it threatens the global order and the rules-based system that has prevailed for the last 60 or 70 years. This at least was the very blunt message that I think frames the next few days in London by Tony Blinken.
It is not our purpose to try to contain China or to hold China down. What we are trying to do is to uphold the international rules-based order. When any country, China or otherwise, takes actions that challenge or undermine or seek to erode that rules-based order and not make good on the commitments that they've made to that order, we will stand up and defend the order.
Greg, Australia is discovering what falling foul of Beijing can cost in trade and economic relations. How's Marise Payne likely to deal with that when she gets to London and Washington?
Fairly directly in all legs of her trip, it does appear, Ros. So obviously the United States has already made statements about not leaving countries like Australia on the field, abandoned and alone when it comes to Chinese economic coercion. So that will be a theme of her discussions when she gets here to Washington, D.C. But equally, the UK is after as many friends, allies and supporters as it can find now that it is more able to manoeuvre on its own foreign policy directions and has its own suspicions about Beijing's behaviour as well. So it'll come up in her discussions there. Before she left Australia, Marise Payne penned what was otherwise a fairly unremarkable and orthodox opinion piece in the Australian newspaper that celebrates the primacy of the US security relationship, but again goes to the question of democracies banding together here. And obviously Australia must feel, as you read this article on Marise Payne's part, that there is a strength in numbers here. And again, that's likely what we're going to see play out in London and then when she gets to where we are here in Washington, D.C. in a few days' time.
Thanks, Greg.